So, Peter, thank you very much for joining me today and talking about our visible learning journey together and also as a community of schools partner. I've got a few questions for you I'd like to ask about your journey in terms of adopting visible learning into your school. So, what influenced you to adopt visible learning pedagogy, in particular student feedback as a means to improve student achievement in your school?
Look, a big answer to that question. What influences us? I think it's absolutely student feedback and the nature of it. I think is absolutely critical to support student learning and improve student learning. And I think it's absolutely at the core of, as I said, student learning. I absolutely think it creates and has a capacity in terms of student feedback and also teacher feedback, and that whole notion of feedback creates belief and confidence for teachers and certainly important to students, and I think it challenges both teachers and students too. Again, it's a critical factor, as in some of the research I've read, it's certainly a critical factor in student learning, so that's where it is. I guess one of the influences too is that for our school over the course of the last couple of years we've had this journey around PBS, and the culture in the place is really positive and really settled and really strong. And so there's this really desire and need right across the school, certainly amongst the staff, to really focus on quality teaching and what quality teaching actually is. And again, I think effective student feedback and visible learning is a key component of being a quality teacher. And so we're at the stage where we're implementing a 3-year plan, and we've got the capacity now to really focus on the elements of quality teaching and getting teaching to really shine, which is where it comes from. We also have a need and a growing need to develop this culture of high expectations. Look, right across the school, probably more so in the senior years, in years 11 and 12, around achievement and what you can achieve, and both through teachers as well, with respect to their view around what students can achieve. And so that's another influence in terms of creating that culture around teaching and learning. So I share that with you. Look, I've written down here, there's a need to focus on achievement and the desire to focus on improvement in student learning outcomes. So again, that goes back to that high expectations. We really want to focus on achievement. We've got this culture in the school, which is great. Now, what are we trying to achieve? Well, we want to achieve our best, and there's that culture of the expectations again. We're looking at also our assessment and reporting practices across the school. Both, we've reviewed our junior assessment policy in the end of last year, and we've implemented some changes around that. We've had some really good professional discussions around reporting and what that looks like, and that obviously all ties into the nature of the feedback that students get, the way we report on that, and making that more useful and more effective. We've also got a focus in the school around this notion of quality teaching. We've again had a lot of conversations around quality teaching programs and having what are the common elements of a quality teaching program. So my theory is that if we've got quality teaching programs and we've developed quality teaching programs and there's common elements in faculty in programs right across the school, that's well and good, and we go about teaching that. Again, the feedback thing is, how do we know that that's hitting the mark, and how do we know that that's improving student learning outcomes? So there's that real need to both teacher and student feedback and to make learning awfully more visible.
Well, I might ask you this because you touched on the strategic directions of your school and the strategic plan, but I might ask you, as a school leader of a secondary school, in this case, how have you collaborated with your community of schools partner principals to lead this innovation and change with your teachers?
Look, in essence, lots of professional dialogue and discussion around a whole range of school issues, but obviously around visible learning and student feedback, but then also around the analysis of data that we have and comparing that through from primary school to high school and how that compares, and there's common elements in that. Obviously, as you're well aware with the work that we're doing around writing, and so there's that common need right across. It ties into providing students with effective feedback so they can improve their learning and improve their skills, which ultimately improves the data that we get given right across the board, or it has the capacity to. The other benefit for us, obviously, is that we have a lot to learn from colleagues, and that notion of feedback, both at my level as a principal to a classroom teacher level, is really important to because it'll improve the way I teach and the way I support my teachers. Teachers will improve. We've got a lot to learn from each other, and I think high school teachers can share, what they do to primary colleagues too. So that notion of feedback, even teacher-to-teacher feedback, is really there. So there's lots of ways, I guess, feedback can develop, I guess.
Right. What professional learning has been planned to bring about change and innovation for your teachers to adopt improved student feedback strategies?
Professional learning that's been planned is look, I've distributed some articles and some readings around visible learning. We've had, we have executive meetings. A major component of our executive meeting each week is around professional learning. So we've spent some of those times in executive meetings in the last few months discussing and looking at visible learning as an executive group, and so there's professional discussion there. We've got some guys going away to a professional learning event in December, and we've looked at as a precursor to our major staff development day next year. And then obviously the ongoing executive professional learning that goes with that, the HADI program that we get from Melbourne. So that in essence is the professional learning. The other professional learning that will underpin that at our school is that we've allocated significant levels of funding out of our RAM budget to support networking across the school. What does that mean? It means that an English teacher might work with a TAS teacher, a maths teacher might work with a special ed teacher in aspects of the work that they do, probably around quality teaching, collegial observations, and student feedback next year, because it's a 3-year plan, will become a major focus of that networking at school. So we'll have teams of teachers working across the school over the course of the year, working with each other around the sorts of feedback that students get and give in different faculties across the school, and we're sharing that not within faculties but on a whole school basis. So that's the aim at this stage.
Excellent. So how will you know that the community of schools teachers have adopted student feedback practices into their teaching strategies into the future?
Look, student results have been the obvious answer to that, but my response would be around the performance development framework and the implementation of that. That's gained some quite good legs so far this year. I'm excited by people's value that they place in that. I could see us next year, because of the nature of our school plan and targeting our goals in that school in the performance development framework to the strategic directions of the school, having a core goal with maybe slight variations around student feedback and visible learning in that, and then through the collegial discussions, collegial observations that are part of that process, that being something that's referred to on numerous occasions in different forums and through different means throughout the course of the year. So that's going to give the feedback to determine the take-up, the effectiveness of it, and obviously the quantitative and qualitative evaluations that you do with students through focus groups and surveys and things of that nature, as well as with parents too. So because often obviously young people go home and talk to their parents, so it'll be good to get feedback from their parents about the nature of their learning and what sort of feedback they get. And the other thing I really want to see, and my discussions with teachers too, the other thing, I like the notion of growth feedback, and would like to see that develop more in the school, as opposed to kids saying, well done. That notion of giving student feedback based on the amount of effort and work and their approach to completing a task, I think is enormously important, and it ties in with a PBS program that we have at our school and the development of that positive culture around the school. So there's a focus on continual growth.
Yeah, because that's what Hattie is talking about authentic feedback.
Yeah, making
What's
it real.
it targeted for?
Making it real.
Yes.
So that's, there you go.
All right, thank you very much, Peter.
My pleasure.
All right.
Pleasure.